Welcome to the Marketing Mastermind, a podcast designed to elevate your entrepreneurial mindset and help you take your business to the next level through digital marketing. Join your host, agency owner Hillary Russell, as she interviews experts from around the world, dives into business success secrets, and gives tactical mindset training to help you elevate all areas of your life and business. Ready? Let's dive into another Marketing Mastermind episode.
Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Mastermind. Hello, everyone. I'm Hillary Russell. And today I have a very special guest who is also a dear friend of mine, Amber Lutui. And Amber, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me. I am so excited to hang out with you.
I am too. So I've known Amber for almost 2 years now, which is a little crazy to think. It seems like it's been so much longer than that.
I was going to say, has it only been 2 years? Yeah,
right? It's so crazy. But guys, Amber is the chief of staff with Entre Institute, which you hear me talk about a lot. But she is just such a phenomenal professional and individual creative, and just so driven too. And you'll hear a little bit about her story, in as we walk through this episode and as we start this conversation. But I wanted to specifically bring Amber on today to share what I consider her innate talent and have her share that with all of you, because I feel that it is I would say one of the most important skills to hone in on and to train yourself on, really, as an entrepreneur. And that is being resourceful. And I'm just going to say, being gritty, like just getting in there and just figuring out a way to make something happen. Right. So Amber, seriously, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm excited to dive in.
Thank you. Me too.
Cool. Okay. So I know a little bit about you, but tell our listeners, give us like the 30,000-foot view of how you became the chief of staff of a multi-million-dollar company. Where did it start?
Okay, well, the long answer is it probably started, when I was a kid and I was working in my dad's office in the summers, and I worked with his office manager, and they would give me special projects. And I started seeing that I had a knack for, getting through obstacles, figuring out solutions for things, and following through all the way to the end. And typically my thought process was, how can I get this done as much as possible without bothering anyone else? And so I learned to kind of train myself to be very solutions oriented and get past obstacles, and then ask questions when I needed to, but try my best to try to figure it out. And I've kind of carried that skill, and it's just grown. I've kind of compounded it over years. But the more direct answer to your question is, I started working with Jeff as a personal assistant. I had returned to the workforce after being absent for 8 years to be a stay-at-home mom. My youngest child, had started kindergarten. And it was kind of hard to convince people of what great skills I had and how qualified I was when I had this big gap. So I went to work in my kids' classrooms and at their school as a teacher's assistant, and I had been very good friends with Jacqueline, Jeff's wife. Our kids went to school together. So when they started dating, and she introduced me to Jeff, he was like, hey, I really need help. I need a personal assistant. And I made that move, and that's where our relationship started. And then eventually I moved into being COO of his digital marketing agency, which I was really proud of, and kind of ran that for a while. He stepped away to be more present at home. They were growing their family, and he kind of trusted me to run things. We'd grown this agency into a pretty successful agency. I think we did like $30 million in 5 years in sales. And so I was really proud of what we built there. And then Entre came to be, and I made this natural progression over to Entre, and eventually as the chief of staff, which is like organized chaos and like the coolest work I've ever done.
Organized chaos. Yes. That is amazing. Okay. So you all also are a very, very humble person. And so, you tell this story, and yes, absolutely incredible. But I want to talk a little bit about Zurli, the agency, the digital agency where you were COO and essentially ran the company for a couple of years.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Tell me a little bit about, with that. I mean, because that's a bit of a transition, maybe it wasn't,
Yeah.
but a bit of a transition of, okay, all of a sudden, it takes a whole new meaning to putting on that ownership hat and acting as the CEO or CEO.
Yeah. When we started, it was a very small operation. And I think what I didn't know at the time, but what really served me in the long run and serves me still today, is that because we were so small, we had a tiny sales team. I was the fulfillment, when we started, I was the fulfillment team by myself. And I think that was it. We maybe had like 3 or 4 sales agents remote, and then I did all the fulfillment. And I think what served me was I was hands-on, elbow deep in every part of the operation. So I understood backward and forward what the sales team was doing, what their process was, what happened at every point of the sale. And then I knew what needed to happen at that point moving forward. I knew what needed to happen with billing. We needed processing accounts. I mean, I give Jeff a lot of credit because he really trusted that I could figure out how to get this stuff done. And it was that skill that I was talking about earlier of just like, okay, this needs to be done. How do I do it? I'm just going to go figure it out. And so we started really small. And then over time, we grew and our sales team grew. We started a local sales team. I got help in the fulfillment department. We had 1 fulfillment agent, and then we had 2, and then we had 3. And then eventually we had to move into a bigger office. And I think at our busiest point, we probably had like 30 employees. And fortunately for me, because we started small and we had this like growth over time, I learned as I went.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that I didn't know and I had to learn the hard way, but there were also things that I was really, I had like the instincts and knew how to figure out how to get it done. And, I had some incredible support. I had some great team members that helped along the way, but I'm really proud of what we did over there.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, and I feel like too that, both with the scenario or the situation with Zurli, but also, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but with the very quick growth of massive growth of Entre Institute, you definitely have almost been forced to become a master of really quickly evolving and adapting to new scenarios or new situations or new problems, or even growing a team maybe very quickly, right? What would you say
Absolutely.
is maybe, I mean, if there's anything that you could give to an entrepreneur, whether they have been, just barely starting out or have been building a company for a couple of years, what would you say is maybe a piece of advice that you would give to someone that could potentially be in situations like that where they have to adapt really quickly?
Yeah, I would say it's 2 parts. I'd say first and foremost, you have to be bold
Mm-hmm.
and confident and be willing to mess up and make mistakes. Be decisive, make decisions, and maybe you'll have a misstep. It will ultimately serve you because you'll learn something from it. But for people like me, my tendency is to be risk adverse and not. I like the structure and I like the comfort of stability, which is it counters the entrepreneurial skills that you need to have. So that's something that I've had to work on, but I've experienced the best parts of the work that I do by taking risks. But my trick, the thing for people like me who struggle with that's really helpful, like the hack is you do the pre-work, you do whatever, you prepare yourself and you minimize the chance of something not working. You do what you can to the extent and for the period of time that you can, so that you feel more confident and you can be more bold. But then at a certain point you give yourself a deadline, and at a certain point you execute, you move forward, and you take a chance, you take a leap.
That's really good advice. Yeah, I I've shared this a little bit in some previous episodes, but when I like first started my career in the corporate world before starting my agency, I was extremely introverted, very shy, kind of low confidence, just like had
Yeah.
no idea what I was doing. And I would get so worked up over like, oh man, I'm too scared to execute. And it would almost be this analysis paralysis situation, right? Of
Yeah.
just like this vicious cycle of like not executing because I was too scared trying to make it perfect before, you know, something was executed or it was launched. So I love that advice to just give yourself a deadline and put it out
Yeah.
there.
And I would say, there's really, I mean, there's all types of people and all different types of personalities, but there are those of us who are like our comfort zone and our stability. And I would say that there's a lot of people that struggle with that. And particularly if you're trying to go in, trying to go build something of your own, that's often like the number one thing that holds you back. A coach told me once, and I thought this was such great advice, to know if you know what you can do better than anyone else, and then you invest the time to do it even better. Like, so you put in the time to develop that thing that you can do even better than everyone else. That creates the confidence that you need to push yourself out there and take the chances that you may not otherwise be willing to take. So it's this great combination of you're always learning and you're always developing. Don't take your foot off the gas ever in your development, because those are the things, those daily actions that you're taking to develop yourself is what will give you the confidence to take those chances that are really hard to take.
Oh, I love that. That is really good advice. I think that that is so key, you know, having those not just professional development, because that's a pretty big umbrella term, right?
Right.
But being more laser focused in developing your innate talents and then leverage
Exactly.
other people's talents that are around you. Don't try to do everything.
It's so true, because Hillary, we, the thing, you create your own value,
Hmm.
and you can create, if you identify what it is about you that's special and unique, and then you just compound that, multiply that. That's how you create your value. If you get focused on what other people are doing and trying to compare and measure up, you've always got a disadvantage. You've got kind of a handicap, because you're not starting with where you're already shining. So I think it's good to like try to develop the things that you're not great at. I'm not good at taking risks. Strategic thinking is something that I really have had to work on and develop over time. But I spend a little time trying to figure out how to be better in those areas. But I create my value by being great at what I'm great at. So that's where I really want to develop.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Be great at what you're great at.
Yeah. And
I
that's
love
okay. You don't have to be on everybody else's path.
it. Hmm. Yeah, that's super powerful because I mean, just looking at, I think that as new entrepreneurs, oftentimes you have the tendency to think, well, I've got to emulate, you know, what these gurus on social media are telling me to do. And I have to, you know, wake up at 4 a.m. and take really cold showers. And I have to, you know, do
Right.
all these things. But it's your pathway and you have your own unique strengths that you really need to lean into.
That's so true. That's exactly what it is. And you often will collaborate with other people who have a different set of skills and strengths. I mean, I think when you were saying that, um, like I can't, I'm not doing what Jeff's doing, and I don't really think that that's my path. I think his path is uniquely designed for Jeff.
Mhm.
But I know that by being really great at what I'm great at, I create something that he needs, because he's not great at those things. And so we collaborate really well. We're a great team. And that he needs that more than he needs someone who can do what he can do. He needs someone
Yeah,
that can do what he can't do. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Kind of filling in those gaps
Yeah.
for your team. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so to kind of, and my brain jumps from like one idea to the other, but I promise it's connected. But the question that I have for you is, you know, as you were talking and explaining that, um, and I know this too about you, that you've really, surrounded yourself with each step of your career, been able to surround yourself with really great people, great teams, that do a phenomenal job. Uh, but the question that I have, and I've experienced this myself, is when you are in a position where you are needing to either grow or produce some type of result fairly quickly, how do you know when to move very fast, like push everything very fast, or to maybe take a step back and to plan and make sure that your system or your process is in place a little bit more? Or does that matter? Right.
Oh, that's the $1 million question, and I would like to say I've mastered that. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I will say I think setting expectations is important, and so when you know that you need more time to execute something the way that you with the quality that is important to you, I
Mhm.
think when it's possible, you set those expectations and say, for me to really deliver what I know you need, I need this much time. But if you need something sooner, I can throw something together and give you kind of an idea or give you what you need, but it probably isn't going to be the quality that you need it to be. It's going to take some work. It's going to need to have some kinks ironed out. And I think setting expectations is really a tool. I think that the mistake that a lot of us make is that we want to deliver, and so we initially will go, oh yeah, no problem, I'll take care of it, and then you're setting yourself up to maybe not be able to do what you committed to do. So um, I would say that setting the expectations, and then the other thing, as far as like how to know when to move fast, I mean, I think it comes with time. I think that I've got some instincts on this is urgent and it needs to be done quickly. I learned through with Zurli, you know, um, money is important when you have a startup. When you have a business that you're just getting off the ground, processing those payments is probably the top priority. And so I'm willing to set aside everything else to focus on what's going to keep the water and the lights on. And so prioritizing, and then, being willing to spend the time and move quickly on the things that are the top priority is important. But over time, you develop some instincts for that. And you'll hear something and go, I'm going to set that aside for later because I need to stay focused on what I'm working on. And then you'll hear other things that you go, okay, this is a big enough deal. And I feel it in my gut that if I don't take care of this now, it's going to create fires later.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing advice. Sorry, that was kind of a unorganized question, but you answered it beautifully. So
Ah,
thank you.
no, I think that's a really relevant, like we're all wondering the answer to that question.
Right. Yeah, that was a really good answer though. I appreciate that because um yeah, there's being educated in the way that you're making those decisions, but also I think setting those clear expectations, and I mean that applies for not just the clients that you're working with and setting expectations with them, but your team members and with either your managers or the team that you manage, whatever that is. Setting clear expectations is really the key of having good communication and then being productive.
It is, isn't it? It's an important part of being entrepreneurial minded, regardless of what environment you're in and who you're working with. It's, when you're, and this is something that I have to think about all the time because I work within an organization, but there's so many entrepreneurial skills that I have to connect to the work that I do. And that's one of them is you have to establish what is reasonable, what you can deliver and what you can't. And that's in building anything in any environment, that's important. So it's almost like giving yourself permission to set the rules instead of working within somebody else's structure of how they think it's supposed to, the timelines they think are important.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's perfect. Okay. That's a really great answer. So let's talk a little bit about Entra now, right? So you're the chief of staff for Entra Institute. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen and what does it mean to be chief of staff?
Okay. Well, chief of staff means different things to different industries. And I've actually researched quite a bit on what different chiefs of staff do, and everyone that I've looked into does something a little bit different, or their structure is a little bit different. And even within my role, I would say there's probably not a typical day or a typical structure for me, because I am collaborating and supporting all day long. So a lot of my work comes from requests from other team members. I in my vision is my key. I am serving our staff, and by serving our staff, I'm serving our students. I'm indirectly serving our students by serving our staff. But what a lot of people would tell you my role is that I am, here to reduce the wasted capacity of our CEO and our CVO, and make sure that their time is, being used efficiently, and that I'm also supporting the executive team so that they can go out and impact lives and, do the work that they need to do. I what's really near and dear to me that I love that I do at Entre, is I also work really closely with what I think of as our special teams, which is our support team. And that's cross-departmental. That can include our project managers, our executive assistants, our administrative assistants, tech support, anyone who's in a role that is supporting maybe like a more visionary role. I relate and understand these team members, and I know how easy it is to burn them out, and what the tendencies are, and how likely they are to tell us, yeah, I've got it, kind of what we were talking about earlier, I'll get this done, when they really don't have the capacity to get it done. So I love working with them and being able to support and advocate for them to make sure that we're really making sure we're giving them what they need to do their work, and that they feel happy and content and fulfilled in what they're doing day to day. But I work very closely with Jeff Lerner and Adam Whiting, who are our CVO and our CEO, and they're what I consider the founders team. And I sometimes we strategize together. I attend meetings on their behalf. I attend meetings with them. I'm on the executive team and work with our entire executive staff to kind of strategize on behalf of the organization. I also kind of manage the overarching schedule of the organization. There's so many moving parts, so many important calendars, and I make sure that we have everything kind of mapped out so that nothing's conflicting with anything else. And a lot of times I'm either putting out fires, or I'm planning and organizing ahead of time to prevent new fires from happening. And I really love it all, because I get to work with everybody. I work across, the entire organization, and I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely wearing multiple hats as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So there was one thing that you mentioned that stuck out to me that I want to ask you about. So you talked about, being an advocate for those who are helping or in roles that are supporting maybe some of those visionary type roles in the organization. And one of the things that you mentioned is understanding and helping them to understand and acknowledge their full capacity and when it's like at its limit, right?
Right.
So help me and our listeners understand maybe a little bit more, because I think that's something that I know I've struggled with in the past, is just burning myself out because I'm maxed capacity.
Yeah.
How do you quantify that?
Yeah, it's challenging, and I've asked for advice from a lot of sources who I kind of watch. I observe how people are managing their capacity and going, okay, it seems like they've got something there. Let me ask about that. So I'm constantly trying to find out more tips and tricks, but you work backwards. You take a look at your calendar and you go, here's the things that are not movable. I have to every day, and you kind of plan for the things that you don't plan for. So, I talked about organized chaos. I have a block on my calendar for chaos work. And I would say most of my work is chaos work. It's the unexpected messages or, billing issues, so I have time set aside for that, so that I am not setting an expectation that I can deliver more than I can because I didn't account for what I need to do there. So I think you work backwards. You look at what is kind of like immovable on your calendar, and you go, okay, there's already this many hours out of my week that are going to be used for recurring processes and recurring meetings. And by the way, a lot of this came from Micah Brandenburg, who's part of the team. He's our CFO and a genius with these things. And he kind of coached me and gave me some of his tips and advice, which have been really helpful. But you work backwards. You look at what you can't move, and then you fill in where you can. And you be really realistic, and then you communicate all along the way. But I think for setting the standard for yourself is doing the best you can to prepare, but then also being willing to say, okay, I underestimated how much time this project would take. All I need to do now is go communicate with other people, the people who are waiting on me for other things, and let them know that certain things are going to be delayed. It's really managing the anxiety and the stress that comes from overcommitting inadvertently, like we all do it. And then over time, you get better at kind of mapping out what your capacity is. It's literally called capacity planning. It's planning out your capacity. And I do it every week now. But for a while, I was doing it quarterly. I was trying my best to like figure out, okay, here's what I'm going to do this quarter. And it was never accurate. Every day there were crazy things that would happen that I didn't plan for, and I would feel very anxious and very stressed about what wasn't getting done. So now every day I go look at my schedule for tomorrow, and I see, where are the gaps, where are things overlapping? Do I need to go communicate with somebody that this isn't going to happen as quickly as I originally thought? And kind of setting yourself up to not have to feel that anxious, that pressure.
Right. Yeah, that's so perfect, because I think that it's very easy to just say, yeah, there's space on my calendar, let me fill it up, boom, 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 until it's like completely full, right?
Yeah.
But I love that you mentioned give room for the chaos or the unplanned chaos. And I
Yeah.
think something that we don't think of,
Yeah.
right, when we're planning out our schedules,
Yeah.
or that we maybe don't account for in most cases.
You know,
So
a trick is as you're receiving those in real time, kind of track on I'll go to my calendar and be like, today from here to there, I worked on this billing issue. And I put it on my calendar even though it's in the past, so
mhm.
that when I'm looking backwards at my calendar, I can see really how much time I'm spending on chaos and plan accordingly for in the future.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
That's
it's
like a
very
very good idea.
helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to start doing that. I would say that's a place where I fall short, is thinking like, oh, I can get this done in 10 minutes and it actually takes an hour.
Yeah, so many of us do that.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. Great advice. Okay, so Amber, some of the I guess leadership skills come natural to some of us, and to others it's not a natural strength. So how would you advise someone who is, knows that they want to start their own business, they know that they, want to create this new pathway for themselves, or this new business for themselves, but maybe as a second thought realize that that also means they have to be a leader and manage a team now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think self-awareness is so important, and it's really the hardest. I mean, if you can grapple with self-awareness and being real honest with yourself, which is really hard to do, but knowing where, okay, here's where I shine and here's where I'm good. Here's the things I struggle with, and to be a great leader, I've got to work on these things I struggle with. I have team members that I work with that are so quick to acknowledge where they fall short. And I think, man, if I was that fast to admit that to myself, I would be so much quicker at finding the solution. So I think, decisive action is important, and you can do that more easily when you have that self-awareness of where you need to like develop. Um, and I think reading, there's a lot. I read a lot, and I will relate to certain things that I read because I'm like, that's my personality. Like, I get that. I think that way. I feel that way. And then I read things by authors who are very different than me, and they give me a new perspective that is not natural to me. Strategic thinking, I mentioned it before. That's something that I struggled with. I'm so good at executing and just getting things done, thinking about the big picture and, the best way to do things and the reason why is something that I have to, I'm quick. So I like to move quickly and I don't like to slow down and think about the why. But if you don't do that, you're not thinking strategically, and sometimes your efforts are wasted because you're moving tactically instead of strategically. So I think that as a leader, like self-awareness is huge. And how do you do that? How do you teach self-awareness? You can't, like that. Everyone has to find that within themselves. I think, like I said, reading helps, but also just being reflective and being really honest. Honesty doesn't mean beating yourself up and telling yourself what you suck at, but honesty means not giving yourself an out and not giving yourself excuses when there's somewhere where you've got work to do.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think well, I know that resonates a lot with me too, just on the side of, the acknowledgement doesn't mean that there's any negative self-talk.
Right.
Means that you're simply saying, okay, this is an area that maybe is not my strength, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when
Yeah.
you can visualize yourself with your skill set and also overcoming that thing that's challenging, when you can like visualize what your success is going to look like with those things in place, it almost becomes exciting to do the hard things that don't come natural.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. Okay. So within, and you can answer this within your position right now or in the past, but I'm curious, what has been the most difficult part of your journey and your success in these roles?
That's a good question. I would say probably similar to most people. I would call it self-inflicted limitations. Um, Telling myself what I probably am not good at is something that I should not do and I will never be able to do. And I think I did that for a while before I realized I really don't have to have any limitations. If I want to do something, even if I'm not great at it right now, I'm resourceful. Like I'll go find the answers. I will go figure out how to be that. I will go figure out how to do that. So I think that the biggest challenge was probably like what I put on myself, but also something you mentioned earlier. It really hit a nerve for me because I think I for a very long time, particularly right out of high school, I was looking at the path everybody else was on. A lot of them had like plans for college and plans for a career, and I was thinking I will not be successful if I don't get on one of these paths. And so I was considering everybody else's path, and not really feeling super passionate about any of them. And so for a while I attempted some of those paths. I even finished one or got close to finishing a couple before I realized that it just was not my thing. And so a challenge for me was understanding that success for me it's not going to look like everybody else's success. Accepting what success is for me, and then how unique that is in the market, and how I can really bring something that nobody else can bring to an environment or a situation. And that's really empowering. That's a cool feeling when you're like, I've got something to offer that nobody else offers, or I'm going to do it I'm going to execute it at a level that's better than average. Most of the people that would be hired to do this, I'm going to do it better than they would do it. And having the confidence and the grit to do it and to know how to do it. I think that I was able to turn around the things that were the most challenging for me and make them strengths. But those are probably the biggest challenges that I've had. There were challenges, and it was looking back at Zurley. I didn't know what I didn't know, and so there were things that I did. I thought I was handling them and managing them the very best possible way, and then found out later there were easier ways to do it. There's times that I'm like, man, I would have saved time if I would have had more training or more experience or brought somebody in that had the experience. But I also learned so much in that process. I don't know if I would have changed it. I think that, looking backwards at it, I think that I probably gained more doing it the way I did it than I would have gained it by doing it different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask you, in any of the fields that, any of us as entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurial minded individuals, we seek out advice and suggestions and examples from other people that we view as successful, or that we want to try to emulate. But I'm curious what your advice is, or your perspective is on this. How do you choose who to take advice from, and how do you decide, or how do you differentiate between maybe something that is going to be good for you versus something that's not, when you don't know what you don't know?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I think about that a lot because I read a lot. And there's different schools of thought on the same topic. And, I think what I do is I respect everyone's opinion and position. I take it all in. But, I don't, there's nobody I agree 100% with. I know what I know for sure. And that's, I think, maybe the trick. Like, know what you know for sure. All of us know something for sure. And I have things that I'm very confident that I know for sure. And then there is a bucket of things that I don't know. And so in those areas, I'm going to take in all the advice I can and then use my instincts to filter out what's not helpful and keep in what is. But
Mhm.
on the things that I know for sure, I'm going to be unwavering and I'm not going to let anybody move me. I'm going to stay strong in those things that I know for sure because when I think about it, I remind myself, I've tested this. I've tested these things over time, so I know this to be for sure. And if something's conflicting with that, I trust myself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. Okay, so I want to present you with this question that I get a lot, actually, from from our new entrepreneurs and Entre Institute, and even some of the business owners that I work with within the agency. There are times where, well, actually, let me back up. I'm going to ask that a different way, because
Okay.
this is a little bit different. So I've had, a lot of new entrepreneurs that have asked this question, and I really want to see what your perspective is. The question is that they know that they want something better for themselves. They want to break out of, the lifestyle that they've, found themselves in, and want to explore that entrepreneurial pathway. But the question that I get is that they come to me and say, I have tried so many different things. I've tried to, improve my skills in so many different areas. I have no idea what I'm good at. Where do I start?
Mm, that's a good question. So there's an exercise in one of the books that I read called Unique Abilities, where you actually choose 5 people that you respect most in your life and you ask them these series of questions where they help you identify what it is that you're good at. I've actually done this, and not just in this book. There's been different development classes that I've been in recently where that was one of the exercises. Every time I do it, I'm surprised. I think that I know what my strengths are, and then I go get somebody else's perspective, and I hear what they think my strengths are, and I go get somebody else's perspective on my weaknesses, and sometimes I get some insight into things that I need to work on that I wasn't considering. And there's my chance for some self awareness and to say, okay, that's something I hadn't considered that I probably need to be considering. Um, but I think that it's so important to know what they're good at. And I have a lot of compassion for someone who doesn't know. I think that perhaps one thing I would caution them on, because I'm making an assumption here, but I think it's probably relatively accurate for all of us. Sometimes when you think you don't know what you're good at, or if you think that you're not good at anything, it's because you're comparing yourself to someone else. And so you've got to take some time to like reflect and contemplate. Think about your experiences. How did you overcome obstacles? What did you do? How do you inspire other people? Do people come to you to get help? Or are you like, do you come in clutch? Like what are the things that you do that other people looked to you to do? And I guarantee you everyone has that. Everyone has something that people look to them for. So I would start there, but I would reflect on it, think on it a lot, and if you need to, go ask the people that you trust. Not the people that love you and that are gonna tell you what you want to hear. The people that you are gonna get honest feedback from.
Yes. Oh, I love that you answered it that way because I mean, there's a lot of different directions that can be taken, right?
Yeah.
I think I think actually, didn't you do a leadership training like months ago with that exercise?
Yeah, I probably, well,
Yes.
no, I think there was, so Liana did one
Oh, okay.
and I think it might be her that you're thinking of. I did another training similar, but I don't think we did that exercise. So you're probably thinking of Liana's, but
Okay.
it was a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember doing that and it was so eye-opening. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, exactly like you say, like you said, that the things that you think are, your strengths or that people are viewing you as maybe your strengths and your weaknesses are not always what those people close to you and that will give you the real answers actually give you answers of.
That's right.
Oh,
That's exactly right. And I have to remind myself and then also remind the people that I'm asking. I had a friend last night that I was asking her advice about some communication. Like, am I being clear in this communication? And I said to her, I'm not looking for validation. Do not validate me. Tell me the hard, honest truth because I want to be clear in my communication. That's my goal. And if you got someone, even one or two people that you can trust to tell you the hard things, to tell you that when you're not seeing it clearly, that's very valuable. And those are the people I would look to get that feedback from.
right. Oh, that's such a powerful, powerful answer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to switch gears a little bit, do something a little fun. Are you up for a quick fire answers Q&A for the end of our conversation here?
Yeah, this sounds
Okay,
fun.
cool.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, kind of fun every now and then. All right. So just tell me, first things that come to mind.
Okay.
Very first one that I've got for you. Give me 3 things that you're really proud of or that you're most proud of in your life or career.
I'm proud of my kids, how they impact others. I'm proud of my support, my how I advocate for other people. I advocate throughout my life, and I'm proud of the work I do every day at Entra. I'm proud of Entra.
That's awesome. Yeah, you have a lot to be proud of. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, second question. What is the number 1 top book that you recommend for someone who is wanting to develop their strengths?
Okay, to develop their strengths, unique abilities.
Okay.
I think it's fantastic. I have a copy of it around here somewhere. Um, I also think I've learned a lot from Unlock Your Potential, Jeff's book. I mean, he does speak a lot about your kind of leaning into to your skills. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have to check out the first one because that sounds like it's something that I would really learn a lot from.
It's a great book and it's got a workbook that goes with it. So it's got exercises you can do
Cool.
with it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and I agree with you too on Unlock Your Potential. I just finished that actually.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's good stuff.
Awesome. Okay, so next question. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back to when you were very first starting out in your career? What advice would you give that version of yourself?
I would advise myself to do what I wanted to do, to figure out what I'm passionate about, what I'm good at, and then turn that into my value. To take initiative and to be bold and take a chance and turn that into my value. And I'd done that, but I waited far too long.
Hmm. That's yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I feel like that's something that we all need to hear.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Awesome. Amber, seriously, thank you so very much for sharing your expertise, your experiences, your, passion. It's really easy to see your passion behind all of these different topics. And thank you for being so willing to share, in our conversation today. I would love to open it up just kind of, before we wrap up our conversation here. Do you have any words of advice for entrepreneurs, maybe that are at the beginning stages of their journey or have maybe, been in business for a little bit, but are coming across some hard times?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say you got to play the long game. So you've got to be patient with yourself, patient with the process. Great things won't happen quickly. Great things are going to take time. So give yourself the time. Don't consider yourself a failure if you're not seeing the results right away.
Mm.
But be bold and take a chance. If there's something that you want, you can do it. You can do it your way. And I'd like to say too, this is kind of important to me. There's a lot of stay-at-home moms who are doing great work. I mean, staying at home with your kids is the hardest job in the world when you're doing it right. And there's a lot of moms that are working so hard, but would also probably like to venture out and try to create something. Um, I think that you can impact the lives of your children sometimes most by showing them what you can go do in the world, and to not be afraid to take the chance to do that, not and to see how you can show your kids all the cool things that you can do, not to wait. Like, you don't have to wait to do it.
That's amazing. Yeah, okay, so we were planning to wrap up the conversation, but now I have to bring this up because I'm really, really glad that you mentioned that. I saw a quote or something on Facebook the other day that said that a form of almost like neglecting your children is not pursuing your goals and aspirations as their parent.
I totally agree with that. And in fact, if I can say this, my husband works, he counsels with people who suffer from depression and anxiety. And he uses music as a modality to do that. But one of the things that he says often, and it's kind of ingrained in our family, is, your children are a reflection of how you feel about yourself. And if you are limiting yourself and feeling like you would like to be doing more, but you don't feel like you can commit the time, you can't give yourself the time to do it because you're devoting your time somewhere else, or if you don't feel like you're capable of it, or if you feel like you're afraid to fail and so you're not going to take a chance because you don't want to risk that for your family, those are things that even if you never say it to them, those are things that your kids will feel in their core, and they'll emulate it. So let them see you be your best and shine at what you want to do, and take chances and figure things out. Let them walk through the successes and the failures and the lessons, and it will be a great experience for them, and you'll have so much more to give to your kids.
Hmm. That's such good advice. That really is. Yeah, I know for me, so we've got a 2.5-year-old little boy, and that's a hard thing sometimes to, know that he's in the other room playing while I'm sitting on meetings in here and feeling guilty that I'm not able to go spend time with him. But, that's such a powerful thing that you're expressing here, is that just by the actions and the passion and the drive and showing even that work ethic, that is such a powerful example that
Yeah.
impacts their kids.
It's so true, Hillary. I think about so many things that I've done over the years, and what my kids' lives would have been like if they didn't witness me doing those things, like overcoming hard things, seeing me, finally see success after a long time of putting in the work and maybe not seeing the fruits of my labor right away. And then the day when the success actually shows up, how we celebrate it as a family. And, my husband telling my kids, like, look at how cool mom is, look what mom can do. And the kids being like, yeah, that's really cool. I honestly don't care if anybody else sees me as, the way that they do, as long as they see and they can only see it when you're walking through it.
Mm.
So I feel, if someone's choice is to be home and to be, that's all they want to be doing, that's great. And I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. But if there's like a piece of you that wants to build something, your kids will love to see you build it, even with the challenges and learning the hard things. It'll all be a value to them, of great value.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm glad that we took that little tangent, because it
Me
was,
too.
yeah, awesome. Well, Amber, thank you so much for joining me today. Please tell our listeners how they can connect with you if they want to, maybe ask you some questions about the things that you shared today.
Yeah, I am on Facebook at Amber Lutui and LinkedIn at Amber Lutui. And I would love to hear from your listeners. I think this podcast is so cool. I think what you're doing and your message is phenomenal. I'm excited to be even just a little part of it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Marketing Mastermind podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, rate our show, and share with your friends on social media. You can also join our community by visiting us online at marketingmastermindpodcast.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode.